Okay, I think I've officially waited the extra minute. Thank you for all coming. Thank you for getting some coffee and hopefully sort of getting woken up on this Tuesday morning. We're going to talk about OTT and making money in an unbundling world and a rebundling world and all of that. I have a great panel of speakers here, and we're going to sort of talk through the various sort of issues. But before we get sort of started, I'd love to get a sort of show of hands on sort of who's in the audience. I mean, who makes content for a living? No one. So, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Who makes content and can make a living? Is that perhaps another way of putting it? So, yeah. Who provides infrastructure for companies and technology? So, quite a few of you. And are there people who would sort of describe themselves as new media publishers opposed to traditional new media publishers? Or, okay. And then anybody from traditional media, the various sort of broadcasts and the like. And, okay. What about operators, the telcos of this world and things like that? Okay, so we've got a sort of big mix here. Hopefully we can address a lot of those sort of issues. The title of the panel is Making Money, and that's really what we believe, or at least I should sort of speak for myself, think is the primary sort of issue that a lot of companies are facing nowadays in this sort of changing media and entertainment sort of space. And there's a lot of reasons. I mean, I think you'll look back on 2015 as one of those sort of tipping points where you've had this massive sort of transition from traditional sort of business models, especially in North America, to new business models. And you'll see a lot of people sort of experimenting, trying to find out new business models. Just the other day, T-Mobile announced that they're basically going to give away video as part of their service and not even charge you on the sort of data plans for that. Verizon, just a couple of weeks ago, announced Go90, which is their over-the-top sort of solution, and it's basically an ad-based thing. My company has the good fortune of working with Vodafone, and they're rolling out a global presence when it comes to OTT with subscription and what's often referred to as TVOD and AVOD and SVOD. And how you sort of combine all of those various sort of different capabilities into a sustaining sort of package is what we want to sort of explore today. And is there any right model, or are there lots of different models? That's really sort of the question. As everybody knows, you have HBO Go, which was what's referred to as a TV kind of sort of product, TV everywhere product, and you had to authenticate against your cable operators, whereas in the OTT space, which is basically the model which HBO then pursued with Now, it's one where you don't have authentication, and they're basically trying to appeal to new audiences which were perhaps underserved or are, as is often referred to, either cable cutters, cable nevers, or cable skinners. And you've got these skinny packages coming out. Anyway, we're going to sort of explore a number of those issues. I don't think that there's any sort of clear, definite right model to pursue. We are really in this age of experimentation. But the one thing which is very clear is that understanding the audience and making sure that you can give them a highly sort of viable product, a highly relevant product, is sort of becoming critical, and there are a number of sort of elements to that. With that said, as a sort of by way of introduction, I'm going to sort of go down, I guess, the reverse of, well, we'll just start at the far end and come this way. With Shawn Miller, if you can sort of introduce yourself, tell us just very quickly a little bit about who you work with and hence its sort of relevancy to this panel, and give me one subject which you think is going to be critical, if you want one word, which is sort of sums up where this whole sort of industry is going. Shawn Miller.
My name is Sharmila Aroskar. I work for 10, the Enthusiast Network. We just changed our name last year. Some of our flagship brands are motortrend.com, Hot Rod. We have a lot of enthusiast and in-market sites. I manage business development for 10, as well as our new SVOD site, Motor Trend On Demand. And to Daniel's point, one word would be probably monetization.
Linda.
Okay, so my name's Linda Abrams, and I am the Chief Revenue Officer for 24i Media. And 24i is a global television app developer that is leading the way in making it easier for media companies, broadcasters, cable operators, and cable networks to launch their services across multiple platforms. We're partnering with Kaltura and other OVPs to solve the problem of my keyword of the day, which would be fragmentation.
Hey everyone, Richmond Roskie here. So I can talk about my former job and my current job, which are both relevant. In my former job, I led advanced analytics solutions within the media and entertainment industry and worked on developing a lot of subscriber analytics applications for cross-sell, upsell, or churn, and then also recommendation engines and other types of things for targeting users, both for acquisition and getting them to adopt and cross-sell and upsell through different through a video library. In my current role, I moved over to the advertising side of the world, and I work for a company called YP, formerly known as the Yellow Pages, a spin-off from AT&T. And what we do is we have about 500,000 small, medium businesses as advertisers, and we're the #2 local search site with about 70 million consumers. And I build ad and marketing solutions to connect the two. And the advertisers are my client. And the relevant piece here is, if you think about it, is if you think about your local cable company and a lot of your local advertising, which is done, that world's going to change through people like you as you start delivering more fragmented branding and content. There's an opportunity for small and medium business advertisers to actually get into the video advertising world as well. And one word I'll use, or maybe two, around fragmentation and content and monetization is being smarter.
Like that. Hi guys, I'm Jeremy Grisman. I am the VP of Operations at a company called Jukin Media. Jukin Media is a next generation media company that is powered by user-generated content. When you think about, again, user-generated content, this is content that what we call accidental creators. These are people who did not go out in the day saying, I'm going to go film something. These are people who filmed their dog doing something very cute, it went viral, and they don't know what to do with it. So we take that content, we package it into different brands. We have a couple different verticals today, such as Fail Army, which is kind of fails and bloopers, Jukin Video, which is what's hot in viral video. We have a brand called People Are Awesome, which is people doing amazing feats, and another brand which we recently acquired from Fremantle called the Pet Collective. And what we do when we have these brands is we grow these brands out digital first. We take them to other OTT platforms like Go90, which you mentioned. We're on that with most of these brands. And then also eventually we'll take that to television as well. So OTT is a big part of when we build these brands. It's digital focus first, building to other digital markets, and then going to traditional media. So and for us, I would say the key word is distribution.
So as you can hear, there's a sort of good mix of people who understand analytics, people who understand content, people who understand distribution, and obviously the user experience at the end of the day. Shawn Miller, I'm going to sort of start with you, and because what I really want to sort of try and help everybody understand is what's happening in the media and entertainment space. What's the big sort of change that's sort of happening? And you're very much on the sort of cutting edge of that because your business was, quite frankly, a very analog-like business, and it sort of transitioned to a TV-centric space, and now, to use Jeremy's word, it's going digital first. So this year, lots changed. Lots changed for your company. A lot is changing in the general sort of ecosystem. What's your take on what's happening now, and what's it going to look like a year from now, 2 years?
So at 10, we, as I mentioned, we had over 150 brands, mainly dealing with in-market automotive shopping. So we have sites like Motor Trend, Automobile, and then enthusiast market such as Hot Rod, Ignition, and so forth. And 10, I mean, decades ago, obviously started as a print company, and as everything else in the last 5 to 10 years has switched to digital, while print continues to be a business, it's obviously slowly losing steam. That said, in the digital area, we realized that our audience was very niche. We have hardcore fans for our original programming shows like Roadkill, Ignition, Head to Head, and we have a YouTube Motor Trend channel which is over 3.6 million subscribers. So this audience really wanted more content delivered to them where they wanted to see it, when they wanted to see it across all devices. So this year, we acquired earlier in the year a company called Torque TV, which is extensive motorsport content licenses across the world. And that combined with our original programming content, we launched Motor Trend On Demand, which is subscription video on demand, a very, very new area for us, very much in its nascency, but really trying to harness our content and reaching our audience where they expect to see the content. And honestly, it's very challenging because there are many devices. There is set-top devices, smartphones, tablets, and within a week of launching the site launched in August. And within a week, we were getting customer care complaints, really, why is this not on Roku? Why is this not on Xbox? So really the audience, and this is our audience skews between, I would say 60% of our audience is between 18 to 34, and 80% is between 18 to 44. So skews obviously very male, 90% male, younger demographic, and they want it now. I mean, when we tell them, oh, we are planning to add Xbox by the end of the year, it's not good enough for them. And so obviously, that has been very challenging, being able to manage rollout across all these different devices, and in tandem, making sure that the performance is top-notch, because again, the audience is very, very demanding in terms of they want the videos to play at the best quality possible and not have any disruption of service. So I expect that just with the investment that our company is making and the OTT model, the traditional, obviously, business model is not going to go away anytime soon, but there is definitely a confluence of traditional and new business models, and I expect that will continue.
Quick question before I move to somebody else. Why not just stick with YouTube? You obviously had success. Why diversify?
We have, I mean, our relationship with YouTube, we don't have a direct relationship with the consumer. So I think that's, again, very key for a lot of content providers. You want to have that direct relationship with your consumer. And YouTube, as you know, has a very stringent privacy policy. So even though we have almost 4 million users, we don't know who they are. I mean, we cannot reach out to them, market them, tell them a new episode of Roadkill is coming. It's very much through a third party, i.e. YouTube. So it's important for 10 to sort of, manage direct relationships with our audience, because we think that they provide us with valuable feedback that really influences our content map as well.
So Linda, fragmentation, the word that you chose, is the world that Shawn Miller's living and the issues associated with it. Your company is sort of focused on trying to sort of solve that. As you look out over the next year, will there be more? Will there be less? Does this become a bigger problem or a smaller problem?
Well, I think that fragmentation is continuing and will continue for a long, long time as a problem. However, I believe that this idea of TV everywhere will become more fulfilling. I mean, somebody said to me the other day that OTT stood for the opportunity to thrive, and I fully subscribe to that. I think if you look out today, 68% of North American households are subscribing to SVOD services, which is pretty huge, and I think the projections are something like $230 billion by 2018 in the OTT ecosystem. So I think that we're all in a good place. 24i takes what is the challenge of taking existing legacy or new back-end systems and creating a turnkey mechanism for seamlessly deploying across these varied devices. But the challenge of the varied devices is that even once you're on them, they require significant updates because of the various makes and models and new ones. So that problem will continue to exist. However, I think that there are smart solutions which we hope to be bringing to the market and have already brought to the market. I also think that the good news of fragmentation is sort of like what Sharmila was saying, is that there is an ability to super serve niche audiences. So if you look at, one of the apps we're in the process of launching in the US is for a company called Next Generation Sports Network. It's NGSN. And they're bringing the games of 20 European and Latin American soccer leagues to fans at a very reasonable price point through an SVOD service, and deliver it in a way that traditional media can't compete. So I think that there's a lot of room for success. I mean, when you look at something like Crunchyroll, that got acquired in 2013 for $100 million, is now at 700,000 subs, paying $7 a month, roughly $50 million a year in revenue. Plus, they've got 10 million registered users monetizing the advertising model. I think there's a lot of room for monetization across different business models geared toward different niches, and that's my take on fragmentation in the world of OTT.
So Jeremy, you mentioned distribution. Obviously, getting to where the people are is critical. So I'd like to sort of get your big picture on whether or not you agree with what's being said and how you sort of deal with that, but also just to tee Richard up, because it's slightly a curveball. So if you're a consumer, you just have this plethora of choice, and it's got to be profoundly confusing. And just think a bit, as Jeremy's sort of talking about, how does the discovery problem get sort of addressed?
Yeah, distribution. I think I definitely agree with a lot of what was set up here. I think that on the YouTube piece, a lot of our brands being digital first were built and bred on YouTube, and it's actually not been a bad experience for us. Fail Army's example today it was started in about 2012, had 0 subscribers like any other channel. Today it has 9 million subscribers on YouTube, making it, I think, like the 40th largest channel on all of YouTube. That's massive. Every time that we post a new video, we have audience development people who are in the comments talking to everyone. We respond to almost every comment that's not unreasonable. So we have a really good connection. If you talk to the team that manages that brand, there are profiles that they know what this person's going to write the next time we send a video. We know what their taste preferences are on what kind of videos we upload. So if they like car crashes more than people doing dumb bloopers. So there's a really close connection. It just takes a lot more work, which is definitely not a scalable solution in the scheme of things, because it's a lot of people power. But what that does, once you create that connection on these digital first platforms, is you can easily move that audience. So recently, Fail Army launched its own app. And we did that both on Google and iOS App Store. We did that with the help of a company called Victorious, which is building apps for different brands and creators all across the web. And I think our first 30 days, we moved 150,000 people to this app. with minimal, promotion. Really, just a few mentions in the end card, a few kind of, hey guys, here's a few links to this new app we're trying. Just to slow roll it and not overload the system overnight. And 150,000 people downloaded this app, which is amazing. And then those are, really the key fans who want to engage in a much more deeper level. And we can really do that on these apps. And further distributing our content, the big focus for us is to be everywhere. We don't care where people are looking at, either a mobile device, a TV screen, desktop, social media. We want to be everywhere. And once we realize that, we'll take our content, put it everywhere, and then really focus in on what's performing, how are people engaging. If people are sitting for longer sessions, we make slight edits to the content so that it's longer for those platforms. If they want shorter pieces of content, we are slicing it to be, we do these 5-minute compilations on YouTube that work really well there. On Facebook, we make about 1.5 minutes for our compilations, because that's what is perfect for that audience. So it's I think the trick is distribute everywhere and just see what happens at first, and then iterate on it. Take what the data says and what the audience is telling you and make the changes that you need to be successful. And that's been massively, successful for all of our brands.
And is it all ad-driven today?
Yeah, it's all ad-driven, and I think another big point to that is because we're kind of going at times on this autopilot mode, right? At first we just say, great, put it everywhere. We're relying on other people's ad networks to sell our content. As this scales and we start having significant inventory, we'll partner, we'll sell it ourselves, we'll do what we need to really maximize it, but to get get off the ground, just get it everywhere, let a partner monetize it if it's on, Go90. Verizon's selling it right now, which is great. It's another platform where we don't know what's going to happen yet. It's so new. Who knows what the inventory is, the audience. Let Verizon go out and do all the hard work, and then we can sit back and iterate as we go along.
So, Richard, we're all consumers. It's like there's so much choice out there, and then there's the sort of fundamental problem of how many services do I have to buy into in order to replicate or at least approach what is conveniently bundled for me today.
Yeah, I think that the key word here, fragmentation and choice, is causing or exacerbating a problem. In a world where you had a few channels and a few platforms, you could massively send out a piece of content that would reach a broad audience, right? This is the world we used to live in, and for the last 10 to 15 years, we continually are getting into a world where there's more choices and more fragmentation, so audiences are getting sliced up. The great thing is that companies like 10 can reach an audience that's passionate about automotive, and subsequently automotive advertisers across the country will be very interested into parts or whatever in advertising. So there's 3 canonical problems that you need to solve. First is finding your audience, and that means what content do I develop for my particular audience or acquire? How do I target market them? What devices? What should my distribution strategy be in terms of devices and publishers, right? So that problem needs to be solved. The second problem is once you find that audience is how do you get them to consume your content? You only got one shot. There's only so much you can present on that first screen, right? And your user interface, right? This is the massive problem we have with cable with 500 channels. Who the hell's going to scroll up and down the channel? So digital gives us a choice. We can do things and present things that are more personalized or targeted, but that's kind of the second problem is getting consumers to consume. And then the third problem coming from the advertiser side, if you're going to go that way, is great. So we know our audience is 18 to 34 male, but advertisers want more. They want to know more about certain attributes, their lifestyle, their behaviors, other things that they can target and tell their brand story to more directly. And so not necessarily the content owner or the distributor has to give them that information, but there has to be systems built to provide that information to advertisers. That's the big challenge that's happening now with the big TV networks and the advertisers. So rolling this all back into an answer, building out analytics and understanding data. We mentioned YouTube before. If you look at the companies that are succeeding now, whoever owns the data is becoming successful. Netflix, Amazon are the obvious ones, right? They know everything there is to know about your viewing behavior, what you're watching, what you're not watching. Companies like Amazon are incredibly scary in a good way from an analytics standpoint that they also can correlate that with all your purchase behavior on Amazon. They haven't gone to an advertising model, but you can see sort of a future where that's possible. And so as you start to build out these content networks, as you start to build out your distribution strategy or your marketing strategy, you have to start thinking about how do I more and more use the data I have around maybe viewership patterns and start enriching that data with other data that you can get from social media, which we've done. People talk about what they watch. People talk about what they like. That's very easy to roll that into your registered user database, and even buying data from companies like Axiom or Epsilon that can tell you what people own. Well, they own these types of cars, or they buy auto parts, or they watch these kinds of movies, Fast and the Furious. You can start to enrich this view around the consumer, and then you can start to do much more interesting things to solve those 3 problems that I just mentioned.
I just want to comment on one thing you said about Amazon, because this is actually pretty new and recent. They actually are monetizing via advertising for video now. They have a section called Video Shorts, where they're typically pairing somewhat relevant content with product, and the content owner is making revenue via advertising on those video shorts. So Jukin, as an example, is part of that kind of system and testing it out. But it's, again, very new, but it's a space I don't think any of us thought they'd be in quite yet either.
So let me sort of just pick up a bit on that. So we've got, I talked earlier about SVOD, TVOD, AVOD kind of sort of monetization models, and DAI, which is dynamic ad insertion into live, sort of programming, creating sort of new revenue streams. But if you look at sort of what Amazon's bringing to the table, and what, if you look back at the music industry and the way that sort of that's evolved, it's really even broader than that. It's like, it's not just about being sort of pure plays, arguably. And there are some people who will controversially say that the new media company is in fact not a media company. The new media company is the Amazons, who are basically trying to sell other things, and content is just a proxy for that. It's Apple, which is trying to sell devices, and it's Google that's basically trying to know everything on the face of the earth about you and about everything. So, with that, so at one level, the media companies as pure plays, media is our business, really have a long time future? Or are we looking at the music industry, the newspaper industry as being sort of precursors for the TV business? And secondly, is the possible way out of that is to have a multitude of monetization schemas, and quite frankly, let's bring this down to something practical. That sounds all very complicated. So, what would you tell this audience is, what you would sort of try and do? Anybody want to, I threw out a lot of stuff there, so anybody particularly want to deal with that?
I'll take a first stab more on the platform side. I think you brought up, people like Amazon and, Verizon, Comcast, all these people who are building platforms. These guys are, the platforms, and they're media platforms where they're distributing content, and it's either, AVOD, SVOD, et cetera. But, there is a secondary goal, right? Like with Verizon, they want mobile data usage to go up so that people on their Verizon contracts are using more data, they're making more money that way. But with Comcast, it's getting people to buy more X1 Infinity boxes. So there is a second piece of this, but I think that's really key to them also in having all this money to fund this. Right now, Verizon's making a huge bet on Go90. It's massive. They bought AOL pretty much for one of the biggest reasons of we need a way to monetize this platform, because Verizon by itself couldn't do it. They needed AOL's technology to do that. That's one of the reasons they spent $4 billion to
and
buy
they needed
AOL.
Intel's OnQ to
Exactly.
build out the thing in the first place. So,
That's 100%. So without those, purchases, they're making big bets that media is a way for them to, really grow their core business, not really, be the focus. So it'll hopefully, I think in their mind, monetize and be profitable on its own, but it'll also juice the core business today.
But let me just,
Yeah.
so T-Mobile
Yes.
announced the polar opposite. They're
Yep.
basically not going to charge for data and give away those sort of services. So,
It's interesting. I don't know yet. I think for us, that's fine. Again, for me, for us, it doesn't matter. We're a digital company that just wants to be everywhere. And for us in the space where you have all these companies that are vying for video monetization because either boost their original platform revenue, or it's, they want video because it's great CPMs. It's great to be a content, provider at this point because everyone wants to compete. You can only compete by either bringing audience, so you partner with companies that can bring audience and content. And I'm sure for people like 10 and for Jukin, it's everyone's the same people are calling us day in, day out saying, we need content, we want to leverage your brands that have a massive following in a unique area, and then we want, they're willing to pay for that. So it's a really great time to be a content provider when all these companies are starting, to compete in this space. So it's a great time.
Right, and then at the same point, I guess I would add to that as a content owner, you want to be everywhere, and yet the challenge is one of all these fractured devices and the expense. So while everyone's moved into a mobile first, scenario, I think that the trend in the prescriptive advice would also be to ensure that you've got a connected TV device strategy and to look at solutions like the ones that we have that allow you to quickly get into the market so that, you got to play to win. You got to be on these devices, and then just like you said, is to follow the audience and iterate and measure it in order to have your success. But you can today be on, many of these. We've got a solution that is a build once and seamlessly deploy everywhere solution at a pretty great price point that'll get you into the market in 8 weeks. And then you can see really what is the engagement and consumption pattern and how can it be monetized. And I don't think that in today's ever-changing world that you have to be scared of changing some of the pricing and models around that as well. I know, Con TV just lowered their subscription price from $7.99 to $4.99 in order to enhance their subscriber acquisition of some of their channels. And I think we're in a very highly experimental time in that, it's better to get in.
Yeah, I would add from TEN's perspective, media, telecom, and technology, the lines are blurring between these three industries. And while I agree with Jeremy and Linda that you have to proliferate across all devices, you can get lost because the marketplaces are really busy. Roku, Apple TV, unless you have a really strong brand recognition. To acquire a new audience, you really have to invest heavily in marketing. And to what Rich was saying, that's something that we are focusing on because we have a network of sites. We have audiences that go to multiple sites. We have very niche audiences who are passionate about just one program or one, even one editor. They have like fan followings, right? So the idea is really to take that audience and see how you can expose them to other content and make them aware of sort of the breadth of your content and get more engagement from them. So we are investing in a lot of data modeling with Axiom, with IMT to really understand our user behavior and predict user behavior, and then in tandem doing marketing to really expose our brand to audiences who may not be aware of what we have.
And just to comment on that, in my opinion, this is where you guys in OTT and digital upstarts have an advantage even over traditional TV networks. It's hard to let go of traditional way of doing things, and the networks are still living in this sort of panel-based, Nielsen world. 10 has no choice, right? They have this audience, and in order to understand it, they can leverage data sources that they have there. And in a lot of ways, that's a huge advantage over a traditional TV network, for example. So they're able to understand much more very quickly, can test pricing, can test devices, can test different types of content. And I agree with you, coming from working at Yahoo previously and coming from an internet background, you can test your way to success in a lot of cases. In terms of pricing and pricing models, yeah, you can do a free, users vote with their feet. They flow like water. A certain user is only going to watch free content on a certain device. Another user that's passionate about certain content is going to pay. So you need to know and find your audience. And so you can test different pricing models. You can do pricing optimization to figure out for a particular audience what the right price point is to maximize usage and adoption. So all these things are very possible. So again, I'm the guy on the panel, pushing the analytics here, but I really do think it's an opportunity for OTT providers to really, compete on that and get ahead.
So I'm going to throw it up, open to questions in about 5 minutes, but I want to go down the panel and very quickly, 2 things in less than a minute each. First, what is the first thing that somebody should do if they're looking at getting in the direct-to-consumer OTT sort of space? And secondly, what's your sort of prediction of what we're going to be talking about? What's the killer software or whatever you want next year at this time? And is this really, as I said at the top, the 2015 is the tipping point in this sort of space? Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've said it a few times here before. I think the best thing you can just do is get your foot in the door, start putting content out into the world, and iterate as you see changes happen. The worst thing you can do is just, overthink it and spend a lot of time building, what you imagine as the perfect app for, let's say, Roku. It'll change by the time you launch it. Roku will change something on their end. You'll launch something that, for reasons you didn't understand, are totally wrong. It's better if you just get content up there. It doesn't need to be perfect. You can fix changes that happen once it's up and really find the perfect fit using analytics. That is so key. On next year, I think we are at a tipping point where you're only actually going to see more platforms getting into the game, more people like Comcast, getting into the game. This is not just going to be nationally, but also internationally. There's massive companies right now that are actually trying to create the same type of business for their, like Sky in the UK is working on some things, and there's other companies all around the world that are trying to do the same thing. So you're going to see a lot of follow along in the next year. And I'm just going to say even further out, I think, 2 to 3 years out, that's where it's going to be really interesting when you see which of these platforms are really going to survive. There's a lot that are going to spend a lot of money, make some really big bets, and fail miserably. So again, if you're a content owner and you're trying to get in, don't wait. Try to get in now because a lot of those will not exist.
Just go down. Richard.
Just re-emphasizing the message, definitely get your foot out there, but also, while you're doing that, kind of look where you're stepping in terms of your audience, in terms of knowing your audience. Again, I'll keep repeating the same message. Pick a target audience. Start with that audience, understand what happens. Maybe you find that your audience is shifting to a new audience and then repivot. But, keep that focus on your audience.
And I guess for me, I would say beyond the audience, it's really pick your monetization model and figure out, which way you're going to move through that. Is it going to be a freemium to a subscription? How is it going to, be monetized? And then how can you select which platforms really do work for your audience and maximize them? I think in terms of trends and whatnot, when you look at the health of the media industry, we're in this big boon of direct-to-consumer, media launches, and I think next year at this time, aside from trying to find that holy grail of cross-platform measurement, I think we're going to see a rebundling of the OTT universe because it's still got to have some stronger discovery and curation capabilities, but those are my thoughts.
Jamal?
I would agree with everyone's points here. I think it's important to, get your content out there, but I think it's also important to make sure that you're delivering content in an agile way because I think users have a very short attention span, and when something is not working right or if they have an issue with a certain flow, they expect things to be changed very quickly and not a month from now or quarterly release and things like that. So I think it's very important to keep on top of that. With respect to predictions, I think it's all evolving. If you look at Red Bull, for instance, it was a beverage company, and now it's a publishing company that also makes beverages. It's a $6.5 billion company, and they have gotten away from sponsoring events to actually owning the events. So I think that more and more content providers are going to want to participate in direct relationships with the audience and really establish that direct line to the audience to improve engagement. And I think content providers can help a great deal along with the effective platforms.
Yeah. I think that's a good summation. Every company in the future really is a media company, whether or not they know it or not, and developing that direct relationship with the audience is critical with whoever your specific audience is. Some people referred to that as the relationship era, and that's probably what we're going into. Questions? Yes, and I'm going to repeat them because I have a mic and you don't. So.
Okay. Shanoa, if I can ask you a question. I'm coming from the traditional
Yeah,
So-
and, sorry.
So very, very quickly, the question was pricing models that 10 is using and whether or not it's going to be successful.
So as I mentioned earlier, we launched the site in August. It's in beta. The pricing model is very high. However, what's interesting about the pricing model is they are core fans, like the diehard fans, who will buy the subscriptions. What our challenge has been is convincing the YouTube audience, for instance, to buy the subscriptions. And the reason that the pricing model is structured, and again, we are trying many different marketing tools, but we are doing marketing campaigns that offer discounts. So the reason the published price, it's kind of like the list price versus the actual price, right, like MSRP, if you will. And the reason the list price seems a little high is because we are using marketing tools to target our niche audience and offering them coupons, which brings the monthly subscription down to say $4.99 a month, which is more palatable. So that's why the published price on the site is higher. But again,
That's how many subscribers you have so far?
we do have a fair amount of subscribers. I mean, again, the challenge for us has been, Roadkill, to give you an example, is one of our premium shows, and the lead guy of the show, David Freiberger, I mean, he's a celebrity in that circle. A show comes out once every month, and it comes out only on Motor Trend On Demand. But it's targeted to the millennial generation. So oftentimes they will hack into the video, get the video for free, post it somewhere. So that's been challenging for us as well to sort of convey the the value of a subscription. And again, we are 2 months in, so we'll talk again next year, hopefully.
Right,
I'll have better news to report.
It's like what people said, I want my MTV was then. Now it's I want my MTV, but I'm not sure if I want to pay for
Right.
it. And Teen Wolf is on Hulu, and the various configurations. And this one has advertising.
Other questions? And please say who you're with, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
the-
so I'm
Let me
assuming
just
that question is for me.
quickly
Oh, you have to
repeat
the
it.
question,
So the
sorry.
question is, how do you see the ad model evolving, given that the model we're all used to is an interruptive one, and arguably in the online mobile connected TV device world, where people essentially have the ability to move somewhere else, that's arguably not the best form of monetization.
So ideally, we want to move away from the ad platform to just an SVOD platform, right? That said, I don't think that the ad platform is going to go away anytime soon. I work closely with our sales teams. They are pitching sponsorships to our, to top OEs, and that is something that they very much still want. They want, pre-rolls. They want, integrated ads. That said, I think what we are attempting to do on Motor Trend On Demand is we planned when we first launched to have an ad-free experience behind the paywall, and what we found is that that was not really sustainable from a revenue standpoint. So what we have now done is we have ads both in front of the paywall and behind the paywall. The ad frequency is substantially lower behind the paywall. So in front of the paywall, you may see a pre-roll with every video that you see. Behind the paywall, you may see it just once every 3 views. So that has proved to be somewhat successful for us. But honestly, I don't think that we would be. I mean, I would love to just say free, no ad experience behind the paywall. But at this point, I don't think it's sustainable for us. I mean, it seems right now, I mean, there are definitely solutions. I'm sorry.
I
I can
think
hear him, so-
we're actually over time, and I think this is a great conversation to have. So I would suggest take it beyond this panel, because this is something that we can all contribute to, and it's a great question. Thank you, everyone. Sorry we didn't get to enough questions, and follow up with us. You can find us all in our respective places. Thank you.
Have you seen that Truex stuff that Fox is experimenting with? No. So they just